Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Friday. We made it to the weekend. Court ended very early today, just about an hour ago, around lunchtime out there. So we're going to jump in and tell you what happened this morning. If you're watching on YouTube, you know the drill. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, share it with your friends, and you can ring my bell if you want notifications of when I post new content. Just click that little bell icon. Music fact of the day. What are the 5 best guitar solos of all time? Number 5, the Eagles, Hotel California. Number 4, Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Number 3, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. Number 2, Eruption by Van Halen. And my personal favorite, number 1, Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. I think Free Bird by Leonard Skinner is missing off that list. Don't forget, you can get 10% off all merchandise in the store using code Sherlock10 at checkout. I'm going to be working on adding new things all weekend. Already got a bunch of good stuff up there, so go check it out. Also, yesterday, after testimony, we had that hearing about the attorney, Mr. Ratliff, who filed this motion to intervene on a Friday, close to midnight, Easter weekend. Judge Boyce, none too happy. The guy had the wrong case number. It said 3 or 4 times in this filing he was Chad's attorney. The attorney's excuse is, oh, that was on my template. I didn't take it out. Judge Boyce is like, oh, okay. So in addition to spelling things wrong, you forgot to take this off and you file it on a Friday. He lets this attorney know that his court staff had to leave church on Easter Sunday to deal with this. In the end, he imposed sanctions on this attorney. He has to pay for whatever time the prosecution, the defense, and his court staff put into this. The attorney wanted to keep going, and Judge Boyce is like, we're done. That's it. Bye-bye. We are going to pick back up with testimony. Mleanie Gibb was still on cross. My opinion is I think that John Pryor is going to try to implicate Mleanie Gibb in the murder of JJ. We've kind of seen some hints dropped here and there, and he starts off with this. He mentions to Mleanie Gibb, they never asked you to provide a hair sample, never asked you to turn over your phone, never asked to turn over your social media accounts, and she says no. He said she did provide a DNA sample a couple of years after what he calls the alleged incident. He says he wants to talk to her about 7 gatherers and asked if she's familiar with that, and she says nope. Chad and Lori got close in January or February of 2019, and he asked, did they talk about a plan to spend their lives together? She said, yeah. In the beginning, they talked about being the head of the 144,000. Pryor says he was talking about on a personal note, and she says yes. He says to Miss Gibb, you said Chad had premonitions Tammy wouldn't live a long life, and he openly discussed that long before he met Lori Vallow. He says you touched on that in a text with prosecutor Rob Wood. She agrees. He asked if Chad ever said he personally would do harm to Tammy, JJ, or Tylee, and she said no, he didn't. Pryor says this plan to spend their lives together would only happen if Chad divorced or his premonition was right. And Gibbs says yes. He talks about that phone call from Chad on November 25th, the day of the welfare check. And he says, isn't it true Chad asked you, where is JJ Vallow? She says no. Chad told Gibb Lori would call after he did. Pryor says, you're denying Chad called, asking about JJ's whereabouts, and she said yes. Pryor says, yet Lori calls back after Chad asking you to cover for her. The police called you the same day, and you said you had JJ. Gibbs says she didn't talk to the police initially, but at the end of the day, yes. She told police she did have him, but she had given him back to Lori. Pryor points out, so at the first opportunity, you said you had JJ. And she said yes. The defense says, I have difficulty with Chad's covering something up. And after a call from Lori, you say you have JJ. He says at some point you decided to tell the police you lied because you had an emotional issue dealing with this. How long until you told law enforcement you lied? She said a couple of weeks. They move on to that recorded call from December 8th between Lori, Mleanie Gibb, and Chad. He says that she took it upon herself to record the call and asked if she recalls talking to Detective Ray Hermosillo before you recorded the call. She says, I don't know. He says, December 6th or 7th, you called Detective Ray Hermosillo She doesn't remember. He again brings up Lori's comments on that recorded call. I had to move her. I'll do what the Lord leads me to do. And the majority of that conversation was between Mleanie and Lori. The only time Chad got involved, where he got on there and talked about his premonition about Tammy and how his sister-in-law, which was Heather Daybell, was the one furthering this theory that he killed her. And she said yes. Pryor says, Lori told you more than anyone knows the truth. Isn't it true? That's a way to say you and Lori know the truth about what happened to JJ on the 22nd. And isn't it true she was being vague on that call because she didn't want Chad to know you were talking about the murder of JJ Vallow? Gibb says no. He says you guys had different names for Lori and Chad, James and Elena. Are you familiar that that is a book Chad was writing about him and Lori? And she said yes. He points out she had a nickname, Mleanie Gibb did. It was Phoebe. I just think about Phoebe from Friends. But in an email from Lori to Gibb on July 25th, 2019, Lori says, thanks. I love you so much. I'm going to teach right now about discerning and shutting off dark portals. They go back and forth for a while. Pryor is saying that this came from Mleanie Gibb. Mleanie Gibb is saying, I never taught light and dark. This came from Lori. I don't understand why they didn't look at the to and the from and see who responded, but we spent like 2 minutes arguing who sent this to who. Pryor says the email was sent at a time where Gibb was going to teach at a seminar. Gibb said she did discuss light and dark with people in that inner circle. Then he asked if she talked to someone named Mike Jones about light and dark. She says no. He says on November 12th, 2019, you texted Lori that 2 people were super dark. Gibb doesn't remember this. Pryor shows a text where she asked for a favor, saying someone named Nancy was super dark. Again, Gibb does not remember this text. They go back and forth about Gibb allegedly talking to people outside the circle. Gibb doesn't remember. He asked if Lori paid for her flight to Hawaii in 2019. Gibb doesn't remember. When Mleanie Gibb got into Rexburg in September, the weekend JJ died, he says, you went to a restaurant when you got to Rexburg. Was JJ there? She doesn't think so. JJ was with that babysitter. Alex met them at the restaurant, and then they went to a Walmart. The rest of the day, she was with Lori, but she doesn't remember if Chad was there. He says on Friday, you went to Gravity Factory, which is a jump place, like a trampoline park for JJ. Gibb isn't sure if it was Friday, but she does remember it was daylight outside. They stayed for around 2 hours, and Alex came and went from there. When they went back to the townhouse, it was Lori, Alex, Chad, and JJ. David and Alex were playing Guitar Hero. He says in a text to prosecutor Rob Wood, you said you were at the convention taking photos for hours. She doesn't remember this text. But it was late on Saturday when she finished at this convention, and she doesn't remember seeing Chad that night. He said on Sunday, you slept in late. And she says, no, I don't sleep in late. On that Sunday, Lori gave Gibb a haircut. He asked how long it took. She said it was a few hours because Lori colored her hair that morning. She did see Chad that Sunday morning after they went to this field behind a church building. It was nothing they were looking to purchase. He asked if Gibb talked to Lori about going to see a property for sale after Chad got out of church. He said, you were traveling with Lori to see a piece of property? And she said, no, I was in the car with David. Chad met them there. And Pryor says, you said Chad was still in his church clothes. She said it's possible. He points out Chad was not there the night they recorded the podcast. He asked if Monday they left to go home. And she said, no, they drove to Pocatello to see David's son around 9:30 in the morning. He says, is it true you, David, and Alex drove by Chad's property Monday morning? And she said no. On a redirect, Gibb explains that Chad and Lori would use the term vibration to indicate the higher the vibration, the closer you were to being translated. When you're translated, your body changes. You don't have to eat. You're stronger and more powerful. She says her communication with Prosecutor Wood did not alter her version of events. Chad was the one that labeled people as dark. And on the day of the welfare check, Gibb said Chad told her JJ was not with Kay. She didn't know JJ had been reported missing when Chad told her not to talk to police. On a recross, Pryor asked if the purpose of the casting was to rid the body of evil spirits, and she says yes. The next witness, FBI Agent Hart, He's going to be bringing in these text messages that are going to make Chad look really bad to this jury. He is with the FBI. He was told about the case at the end of November 2019, and they get involved when it's missing children. They have expertise in that area, and they often work closely with local agencies to assist in these investigations. In this case, he was the FBI supervisor and looked through all these iCloud accounts and texts. He explains the Lolly Time account for Lori. That one had way less data than the Lori for Style. The Lori for Style iCloud had been active for almost 19 years. One chat may contain 3,000 messages within that chat. His estimate is about 130 to 150,000 records for that iCloud beginning as early as 2012. Now, I don't think this was testified to today. I just looked back at my notes from Lori's trial to kind of add in some stuff. The amount of information on all the accounts obviously was huge. Most of the information today is going to come from that Lolly Time account, and the date range for these are January to August of 2019. He starts off with a text between Lori and Audrey. Audrey actually was a friend of Chad's. Chad introduced Lori to Audrey. This text is from January 23rd, 2019. So very early on, just after Lori and Chad met. This text is from Lori. Audrey, this is Lori. Would love to talk to you sometime. Text or call me. I'm excited to be able to talk to you about what we both know. Audrey says, hi. Guess you talked to Chad. Did he tell you I have a crazy work schedule? I might be able to talk tonight. I'll have to play it by ear, but it won't be until around 9:30 or after. Same for tomorrow. Lori said he did. That's okay. Just let me know when you're available. No pressure. I think it's fun to talk to someone who knows what's really going on. Audrey said, so what time usually works for you? I usually talk to him on my lunch breaks, Mondays or Tuesdays. Sunday afternoon, I can talk. The investigator said that the significance was what they both know is Chad told Audrey his plans to marry Lori. In my other notes from last year when he testified, Chad told Audrey Tammy would die and Lori would be his wife. He wanted Audrey to be a buffer between him and Lori until Tammy died, and Audrey was willing. July 13th, 2019, 2 days after the murder of Charles Vallow, Melanie's texts Lori, Brandon is making me promise to not have you or Al around my house or kids. He's talked to a lawyer, and he said his lawyer said, due to the circumstances, he can do that. What do I do? He brought Allie Bloomer's husband here, who is a cop. Now, we know Lori has sent this to Chad. Chad responds to Lori, he can't do that, like he can't get a restraining order against you. The mediator would make that clear. You and Al didn't have any charges against you. I will check Allie Bloomer and husband. Lori says that's a good idea. Chad responds and says Allie is a 4.1 dark and her cop husband is a 3 dark. I suppose Brandon doesn't know yet about the discovered Charles texts. Lori says not yet. I'm sure he knows it's not good. They have a lot of contact. Mel says he looks scared. So then Lori texts Melanie's, Allie's husband, 3 dark. Chad responds to Lori, his emotions are 75% panic, 25% fear. Yeah, he's a little worried. And then the agent points out Chad gave the information to Lori. Lori would text Melanie's with what Chad had said. Lori asked Chad, can you clear Melanie's new house? She says Melanie, I say Melanie's. She is sleeping there tonight and check it for recording devices. Chad says, glad we are in sync. I will clear the house and check it. Was he surprised when she returned home early? I'm working on the house, but have to break down some dark entities Brandon created. I detect 3 listening devices. Lori texts Melanie's and it says, from your dad. And she repeats that last part of the text. In a text message, July 13th from Chad to Lori. Concerning the 2 weeks, BYU Idaho's graduation is July 23rd. Adam is getting his bachelor's and Leah and Joe are getting their associates. They are all walking in the same commencement ceremony. I feel she will be gone by then, but I still have that hoopla to deal with because a lot of my and Adam's family are coming and will stay for July 24th. So I believe that's why the Lord hinted I might not get to be with you until that's over. Please ask about that. I feel she will be gone by then. He's talking about Tammy. On July 14th, Chad texts Lori, "Good morning, my most beautiful Lily. Thanks for joining me in the shower this morning. Wow. Getting ready to leave for my meetings. Does noon your time look like a time we could talk? I love you so immensely that the whole universe knows it. And very soon, the people on this little blue globe will know it too." He puts hearts, eyes, and lips emojis. Lori responds, "Morning sunshine. Sure. Call me if you get a chance." The same day, Chad to Lori, "I love you so much. You are my greatest desire, my best friend. Now, on with the story." So, y'all, he starts to read Loin Fire. Here it goes. I'm going to try to keep it together. They would both attend the same event in mid November, and it seemed like that day would never arrive. Each day, they opened their hearts to each other a little more. James knew he could trust her with the mysteries of the universe that had been revealed to him. He knew they had been married before, and they had been close friends with the Savior when he lived in Jerusalem. James had served in an important position in the Lord's church, and Elena had been his beloved spouse and best friend. That relationship was now meant to continue in this lifetime. As James and Elena talked on the phone, he tried to delicately describe their connection to each other, and he was delighted that she believed him. He also shared that they had been married other times on a previous world and that she accepted that information as well. James was overjoyed to have those memories restored to him because he truly loved her with all of his heart. He knew they were meant to be married again and complete important missions together before the second coming. He was ecstatic that she was receiving confirmation of these things as well. As they talked on the phone, the spiritual connection was so intense that it also produced physical desires, and it was as if their spirits were making love despite the great distance between them. James knew his spirit was visiting her during those conversations. He also became aware that his spirit would visit her at night, and they would wrap around each other in a sensual embrace. Kissing her was so wonderful and real. And he knew the next time they saw each other, he needed to kiss her. He wouldn't be able to resist holding her. He was absolutely in love with her in every way. Chad texts, "Hanging in there, but really missing you. Hanging in there, but really missing you too. Please find out the name of Mel's compound in Utah. I have no intention of going, but I feel it's our avenue to get together, whether she is still here or not." She being Tammy Daybell. Lori texts back, "Zion's family camp. Mel speaks Wednesday night and Dave speaks Thursday night. Shelly M is their main speaker. I roll." Chad says, "My trip to speak at the camp, July 24th through 26th, has been approved and is now on the calendar." This was an opportunity for Lori and Chad to meet in person, using this speaking assignment as a ruse to leave home to be with her. Investigators confirm Lori and Chad did meet up in person July 24th through the 26th. Text from Chad to Lori the same day on July 14th. "I need so badly to just gently kiss you. 4 hours. It would likely lead to other activities." Lori says, "Likely or luckily?" Chad says, "It would luckily lead to nakedness." Oh, y'all. The next day, July 15th, Chad says, "I know you won't get this text for another hour or so, but my love for you is overflowing right now. I just want to hold you endlessly. You are my wonderful best friend that I can't live without." Lori says, "And yet you are. So sad. Missing you. Just landed. Gotta get to work." July 18th, Lori texts Chad. That's the one where she got the letter from the insurance company saying she's not the beneficiary. "It's a spear through my heart. Who do you think he changed it to, Brandon or possibly Kay? He left nothing for JJ." Chad says, "Wow, that's terrible. There is no way to find out." Lori says, "I might be able to see when I get his computer on Sunday. I could check the emails I sent to the insurance company. It will show change of beneficiary. He must have done it recently." Chad says, "It seems you would have had to agree to the changes. Maybe your name was forged. You should have a good paper trail to prove it. I love you. This is terrible, but it's probably another step in bringing down the Gaddy Antons, especially Brandon." Lori says, "Nope. He can change it anytime he wants. He's the agent, and anyone can change their beneficiary anytime with their own signature. I'm thinking it must be Kay." Chad says, it'll be interesting if he got it changed after he had 2 bullets in his chest. On the 18th, Lori says, I don't think it could have. You can't change it after the death date. They would review that. Chad says, yes, I'm thinking Kay as well. She is probably freaking out that you got those computers. I'm going to shower and give you a blessing. I'm eager to get home so we can talk. It really will be okay, my love. You are wonderful. Lori says he changed it in March, so it was probably Ned before we got rid of him. They can't tell me to who, of course, but it's done. I still get the 4,000 a month from Social Security. On the 21st of July, 10 days after Charles's murder, Lori texts Chad, found out Ned gave it all to Rhonda, 2/26/19. Rhonda, that was the demonic entity that was in K, according to the wackadoodles. Chad texts back, glad you found that out. Lori says it fits. Now she'll try to take him. Thanks for working on her. Work on me too. Reading all this stuff makes me sick. Chad says, we will work hard on Rhonda when we get together. I will get her numbers as low as I can by Wednesday. Lori says, good. Let's work on it hard. July 21st, back to the loin fire story. James and Elena had agreed to visit the temple the following morning. She returned to the hotel room, and after additional romance on the couch, they calmed their nerves enough to give each other a blessing. As James placed his hands on her head, he connected with Elena's true eternal self. He knew he was in the presence of an exalted goddess who had returned to Earth to perform a special mission. This mission included being with him, and they would progress together as translated beings. The full plan wasn't yet complete, dear to him, but the immense power radiating from her confirmed his belief she was among the greatest women in the universe. They embraced following the blessing, and the emotion they felt was a mixture of eternal bliss and celestial desire. The sexual chemistry was undeniable, but the spiritual unity was a glorious bonus for them both. They had only known each other for 3 weeks, but two lonely, misunderstood souls had finally found their best friend that they could trust and confide in. Lori texts back, she loves it. Chad continues with the loin fire story. They arrived at the temple and they both felt they should do sealings together. They were soon seated in a sealing room facing each other. Elena looked so stunning as she smiled at him. She seemed calm, while he felt quite nervous. Their opportunity soon would come to kneel across the altar from each other, and as the sealer pronounced those sacred words, James and Elena knew they were now sealed as husband and wife for eternity. As the earthly sealings was taking place, a similar scene involving their spirits was happening on a higher plane, where they kissed and unified their souls. They knew they had just begun a new journey together that was eternal and never ending. Lori says, it's making me so happy to read about our life that I'm finally going to dance, missing you and loving you from afar. It was great. I feel free again. I love you more than ever, and I can't wait to be with you forever. I'm begging Father and Mother. That's my job tonight. Chad says, I will be right beside you, begging just as much. I need you desperately. The next day on the 22nd, Chad says, love you. Going with Garth in an hour to see Other Side of Heaven 2. Missing you desperately, but am excited to be with you. Lori responds, I love you. You will enjoy the scenery. It looks like Kauai a lot. Hopefully, we will be there someday together. Chad says, that's the plan and my greatest desire. Later on, he texts back from the movie. We enjoyed it. I look forward to being on a tropical island with you. July 26th, Chad texts Lori, I'm home. Missing you immensely and feeling very tired, but I had a splendid time with you, my love. This is that time where he got the excuse to come be with her. Then he says, tonight I figured out who I feel like. I'm a grown-up version of Harry Potter who has to live with the Dursleys in his little space under the stairs. Every few weeks I get to escape and have amazing adventures with my goddess lover, but then I have to return to my place under the stairs feeling trapped. But I sense permanent freedom is coming. Lori says, are you mad? Sad? What? Chad says, I'm doing okay. Just no privacy here to hardly text, and I'm missing you immensely. I feel good about the trip. Lori says, I need a distraction while I'm waiting for you. I love you. Chad says, absolutely. I think you'll have a fun time. That was 2 weeks after Charles was killed. That's where we left off. Court ended very early. We'll pick up on Monday with FBI Agent Hart still on the stand. These are the things that are going to be very impactful for the jury. We'll see what next week brings. Hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend.